Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline is the play-by-play voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies, John Laaser. John, nice to have you on BYU Sports Nation.
Absolutely. Great to be with you guys.
First question, have you ever been to Provo, Utah?
You know, I haven't. I went to school at Arizona State, so I kind of spent a number of road trips kind of going by and through, but I've never been here for a prolonged period of time. So I know, like the guys, we were excited, man. We posed for a picture in the airport with the mountains in the background, so ready to roll and happy to be here.
It's not like the Appalachian Mountains, but yeah, a little different. But what was the traveling like for you, John, as you guys played an overtime game just 2 days ago and then had to get to Provo here to play tonight?
You know, in terms of some of the other travel complications we have on the East Coast when you get hit with all that winter weather, it actually wasn't all that bad. You know, I think we'll determine tonight whether the guys are able to find their legs that quickly, particularly in this elevation and having come so far from home. But in terms of the actual logistics of the flight, it wasn't much of a problem. We left yesterday about 12 Eastern time or noon Eastern time. We got into Provo about 3 o'clock local time, got over, shot around a little bit last night, and I think all the guys were able to get a pretty good night's rest. So from that complication standpoint, it wasn't that big of an issue. But back to your point about the Appalachian Mountains, yeah, that's what Buzz Williams said last night. He goes, guys, they talk about mountains where we're from. Those aren't mountains. These are mountains. You need to be ready for them. You're going to lose your first wind a little quicker tonight than normal. So know that that's normal, and we'll substitute accordingly.
My dad's from Virginia, North Carolina. I've had that battle with him my whole life. And I said Appalachian, not Appalachian on purpose, John.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I'm with you, man. I'm not a native of that area, so I go with Appalachian, too. It's part of the process of them starting to like me a little more.
One of the biggest challenges of tournament play is kind of this cram for the final feel where it's like, okay, we survived. Now we have 24 hours to break down film on BYU and put together a game plan. In the time that Virginia Tech has had to prepare for BYU, what kind of a challenge do the Cougars present when you look at matchups tonight?
Well, that's just it. It's not only how you want to match up, it's how you want to schematically try to take Kyle Collinsworth and not allow him to be the optic center, nerve center of that BYU basketball team. And obviously, he's one of the most efficient players in the country, if not the most efficient. So I think the Hokies are going to take the approach that some other teams have taken, for good or for bad, and that is to not help off, to try to stop Collinsworth and leave wide open shots for Fisher and Emery, you know, whether that be from the wings or from the corners, because if you do that, you're dead, particularly in transition. You've got to identify those two shooters coming up the floor in transition. I think the Hokies think that they may, on the other side of that, have an advantage in terms of themselves getting out in transition, but in order to do that, you've got to get stops, which is easier said than done. And, of course, the worst-case scenarios of everybody is feeling it tonight for BYU and lighting it up from outside, then you might find yourselves in trouble. But if you get past that feeling-out process, I think this actually will play out into a pretty good matchup.
What kind of team does BYU remind you of, maybe in the ACC if there is one?
You know, that's difficult to say. I don't think there is one, to be honest with you. I think the style of play that you see out here is quite a bit different. And actually, the most recent opponent, I think BYU is quicker, more athletic, and bigger than the Princeton team that the Hokies were fortunate to beat in the opening round. But a balanced team where you can get hurt by anyone, anytime. And BYU is a little bit different, and they do have some capable big men, and Princeton really didn't in terms of guys over 6'7" or so. But the ACC, just a completely different conference. Not to say better or worse, but just different style of basketball. And Buzz was quick to point that out last night. He said, guys, this preparation for this game and the way that we're going to ask you to defend is wholeheartedly different. So that's definitely an advantage to BYU because they haven't seen a team like that, whereas more than likely BYU has gone up against a team that profiles somewhat similar fashion to be Virginia Tech.
Buzz Williams is one of the bigger personalities in all of college basketball when you look at coaching, and he creates a lot of smiles for fans and opposing coaches and just has a really fun air about him. What's the biggest difference that he has made for the Hokies program as they look to rebuild and kind of get to that next level in the ACC?
Culture is the biggest change, and you're right. His personality was the first step in that, but the legitimacy of the work that these guys put in behind the scenes and the character of the guys in this program is what allows you to take steps in that direction, because he talks all the time about making up ground, particularly in a conference as stacked as the ACC is the most difficult thing to do, not only in college basketball, but in sports as a whole. And this team has undoubtedly, regardless of the outcome tonight or what they're able to do or not do going forward in the postseason, has done that. I mean, you look at a team that 4 consecutive last place finishes, no hope, left for dead, stands are empty. People were just looking forward towards spring football and what that was going to look like year to year, to winning their 20th game of the season, posting double-digit wins in a winning season in the ACC, and doing it with a roster that was missing 3 of their 30-plus minute guys for the entire season, if not the majority of the season. And it borders on the remarkable, and it certainly, I think, falls under the category of incredible. And that definitely starts with Buzz, but also filters through the rest of the coaches that he's assembled. It's an interesting program in the standpoint that it seems like everybody was chosen for a particular reason. And obviously, you're not going to be correct in all of those predictions or selections in terms of people, but for the most part, the pieces seem to fit together well, and the sum is certainly greater than the part.
This is off the radar a little bit, but I wanted to ask it. So Bronco Mendenhall goes to the rival Virginia. What was the reaction of Virginia Tech fans to that hire?
I think it was blunted a little bit, guys, by the fact that we've made our own hire, of course, and there's so much curiosity about what Virginia Tech football is going to look like under Justin Fuente, and for the first time in 3 decades not being led by Frank Beamer, that there's a curiosity certainly about what Bronco Mendenhall will be able to do in Charlottesville. But right now I think there's also the feeling of Virginia's the least of our concerns, and we've got to deal with our own house and deal with some of the other teams that are a little bit further ahead that have gotten ahead while the Hokies have fallen back a bit. North Carolina and Duke, both programs on the rise. And I think the immediate questions are the same ones everybody has. How will they recruit in a relatively foreign area, particularly when the players will be younger and probably from a different cultural demographic than he's used to. So a lot of curiosity around both Virginia Tech and Virginia. But I think that everybody in Virginia definitely thought that it was a very solid hire and a very respected football man in Bronco Mendenhall for sure.
Because of what's happened at Virginia Tech over the past few years and now the turnaround under Buzz Williams, how does this team view the NIT? Because BYU is kind of like, well, we want to get to the NCAA tournament, didn't. There's disappointment there, but they're happy to have home games. So how does Virginia Tech view a trip to the NIT right now?
Well, I think you can answer that, or I'll answer that in 2 parts. I think from an administrative standpoint and a fan base standpoint, they're exceptionally excited about it. And from my perspective, I think that obviously everybody could have put the feather in the cap and said we made the NCAA tournament. That hasn't happened very often. But I think when you look at it bigger picture in terms of what Buzz is trying to build over the next few years, I think a run in the NIT, if they could somehow find a way to win tonight and then go back for a home game, and try to make it to New York, the buzz around Blacksburg would be something that they haven't seen in years and might actually be more beneficial than just a one and done or a one-off in the NCAA tournament. From a player's perspective, they're young kids, and Buzz has done a phenomenal job of instilling that chip on the shoulder feeling. So I don't think that they're wholly cognizant of how the process works and the fact that outside of winning the ACC tournament, despite the fact that they won 6 games in a row in what they feel is the toughest conference in America, they had no chance come Selection Sunday of getting into the NCAA tournament. But I think Buzz has once again done a nice job of gathering that, not anger, but maybe frustration or lack of respect card and funneled it towards the NIT, and I think they've been ready to play, and I think they will be again tonight.
John, when I evaluate a team, I like to look at where their ceiling is, and the ceiling for Virginia Tech is wins over Virginia and Miami. What is this team capable of?
Well, they're capable of matching up in different styles because, again, they're not, your traditional 3 guard out, 2 forward under type 5. They come at you in a wave of about 8 or 9 guys that are all pretty versatile in terms of their length and speed and athleticism. And, you look at what they did against Princeton, and it was obviously a mismatch for them in terms of their athleticism in the post. And you see Zach Leday go off for 29 points. I guarantee you he will not do that again tonight against BYU. You look at Jalen Hudson, who has probably the most talent on this team, but isn't necessarily the focal point. He gets 28. And I guarantee you he won't do that again tonight. But Justin Bibbs may go off tonight from outside. He's their best perimeter option. So it's a team that doesn't have a tremendous amount of guys that vital statistics jump off the page at you, but it's a team that has a lot of balance and a lot of guys that can hurt you in different ways. And that balance and versatility allows you to play a number of different styles. My apologies, guys. It seems like a parade is going through our hotel lobby here at the moment.
It's all good, man. It's live radio and live television. We get it.
Today, yeah.
Hey, if you need a vocal tour guide, by the way, in Provo, we'd be happy to help you out with that for taking some time with us today.
Absolutely, guys. My pleasure.
John Laaser joining us. We appreciate the time, man. We'll see you tonight in the Marriott Center.
All right. Can't wait.
Joining us on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline was the play-by-play voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies, John Laaser. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.